Okay, today we're going to learn how to color correct using the Lumetri tool. When you open your sequence, you'll see that we have 4 shots that are divided in half. And what we will do is we will color correct the second half of the shot and leave the first half uncorrected so that we can see the difference. So let's go ahead and hover over the second half of our first shot and select it. And we will go to Effects, and we will go to Video Effects, Color Correction. We'll find the Lumetri color filter and we will drop it on our second half of the first shot. Now we will go to Window, Workspaces, and we will choose Color, and that will open up a workspace that's a little easier to work with. We've got our Lumetri controls here on the right, and we will now be able to open up our scopes on the left. And what we want is the Rgb Parade and the waveform monitor. And so to get to that, we will go to the presets, and we'll pick Parade RGB Waveform YC, and then we will turn the waveform to Luma. And so now this will measure our blacks and whites. 0 is pure black, 100% is pure white, and we will be able to balance our colors with the Rgb Parade. Alright, so let's start in our basic color correction. Everything's kind of squished down in here, so what I want to do is I want to raise our white level until this little bit of information right here is just starting to peak right at 100%. So we'll raise it up to there. Let's also change these tools to float. Alright, so now we've got some brightness in here. We can take a look at the blacks, but they're actually kind of right where they want to be, right at 0. Now if we look at our scopes, we will see that we're missing some blue, which is why everything is looking too yellow here. And so we will go ahead and add blue until the red and the blue look about alike, and then we will add some magenta to have them all look about the same. So now, according to the RGB, we are white balanced, and it looks white balanced here. The last thing we're going to do is apply a basic vignette. First thing we'll do is we will take out the feather so that we can see it, and then we're going to darken our edges, and now we can see our vignette, and we can change our midpoint to change the size of it. We can mess with the roundness a little bit. Let's go ahead and make it a little smaller. Now let's boost our feather, because what we want to do is to be able to see it and not see it at the same time. And by having just a vignette around it helps draw our eyes to the center of the frame. And so I'm calling this good, where the vignette is doing its job, but when we just look at it, we don't really see that there's a vignette. So that's shot number 1. Now let's go to shot number 2. And we will need to apply our Lumetri to this shot. And we'll just do a real basic color correction on this. Let's lower the exposure just a little bit. And what we'll do is we'll take the white balance selector, and we'll pick something that we want to be white, and we'll call that white. And that'll kind of get us in a good basic place. And so in this shot, basically we want a black and white shot with just a blue sky. And so what we will do is we'll go back to our color correction filters, and we will drag and drop leave color onto the second half of that clip. we will take our eyedropper and we will tell it to pick blue, and amount to decolor, we'll take it all the way to 100%. Now let's make our shot a little contrastier. Make it feel a little more dramatic. Okay, now I'd like to make the blue darker, but if we get into the vignette, you'll see that it basically is messing up what our leave color tool is doing, so we don't want to do that. To create our vignette, what we want to do is we go back to our project, and down here we'll click New Item, and we will click Adjustment Layer. And I'm going to just click on that, and I'm going to call it Vignette. And then we're going to drag that vignette right on top of the shot and make it the length of the shot. And then we will drag Lumetri onto that. And so that's the Lumetri for our shot, and this is the Lumetri for our vignette. And now we can add our vignette on top. And so we have our before and after. We got a little bit of weird banding right here, so let's see if we can add a little blue to it. Let's go back to our scopes. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. Now we'll go to our third shot, and we will add our Lumetri to that, second half of that shot. And first thing we want to do is balance it. And so let's go ahead and drag our black levels down. And we want to bring our whites down a little bit as well, just so that it's just touching 100. And we might bring it back even lower once we get into our look. And now we want to color balance everything a little bit. We are a little yellow in here. Let's lower our exposure a little bit. So what we're going to do with this shot is we're going to make it look like it's a day for night shot. And so let's go into the creative section, and we are going to, we can scroll through a bunch of different looks, and it'll tell us what these looks, how they'll appear in our shot. But I already know what we want to do, so we are going to go to the day for night SL Blue Day for Night is what we're going to choose. And then we are going to lower the intensity of it. And then let's bring in our vignette. And then we can play with our shadows a little bit. We want to bring up the exposure just a hair. And so we'll call this a credible day for night shot. Now we'll go to our last shot and we'll use the white balance selector again, and let's go ahead and white balance on the hat to get our skin tones, and then we can see what's before and what's after. Looks like we could still have a little more blue, so we'll crank it up just a hair, and then we will add a little more magenta to balance out our waveforms. Alright, so that looks good. We will add our vignette again. Make it smaller, feather it out. And so those are the 4 shots. Before you render, you will want to render all your effects into out. And then render it. File, export, media. We will call it your name, Lumetri Workshop. Put it where you want to save it. We want it to be Apple ProRes Lite. We want to match our source. So now it'll be a 1080p project right there. Click export and post it when you're done.